9 experienced hikers, young, trained, confident. On February 1st, 1959, they were deep in the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union, attempting a winter expedition that would qualify them for the highest level of backcountry certification. They weren't amateurs. Most were engineering students, strong, methodical, used to harsh terrain. Their leader, Igor Dyatlov, was only 23, but already respected for his competence and calm decision-making. This was supposed to be a difficult trip, not a fatal one. The group set up camp on the eastern slope of a mountain known as Kholat Syakhl. The name translates roughly to Dead Mountain. But the name wasn't unusual for the region. It didn't signal danger, just a barren landscape with little wildlife. That evening, temperatures likely dropped below -25°C. Wind across the open slope would have made it feel even colder. Still, nothing in their journals suggested panic. They ate, they joked, they documented the day. Everything appeared normal. And then something happened. Sometime during the night, the hikers cut their way out of their tent, from the inside. Not through the entrance, through the fabric itself. When search teams found the campsite weeks later, the tent was still partially standing. Boots were inside, clothing was inside, personal belongings were left behind. Footprints in the snow showed that the group had left on foot, some barefoot, some in socks, walking downhill into the forest. No signs of a struggle at the tent, no signs of an external attack, just an abrupt, organized exit into deadly cold. The first 2 bodies were found beneath a cedar tree nearly a kilometer away. They were dressed lightly. There were signs they had attempted to start a fire. Branches above them were broken, as if someone had climbed the tree, looking for something, or watching for something. Over the next weeks, the remaining bodies were discovered, scattered across the slope and forest. Some appeared to be trying to return to the tent. Others were found in a ravine under several meters of snow. 9 hikers, all dead, no obvious attacker, no clear explanation, and an investigation that would only deepen the mystery. For decades, theories would range from avalanches to secret military weapons to something far less grounded in reality. But before jumping to speculation, we need to understand what the physical evidence actually shows, because the truth of Dyatlov Pass may not be supernatural. It may be something colder and far more human. Welcome back to NOXORA. On this channel, we examine real historical mysteries through evidence, documentation, and logic, not exaggeration. Today, we're breaking down one of the most debated cold case tragedies in modern history, the Dyatlov Pass incident. In February 1959, 9 experienced hikers died in the Ural Mountains under circumstances that would confuse investigators for decades. What makes this case powerful isn't just that they died, it's how they died. A tent cut open from the inside, footprints walking calmly into the snow, bodies scattered across a frozen forest, severe internal injuries, and no confirmed external attacker. It sounds cinematic, but this isn't fiction. These were real people. Engineering students, athletes, experienced trekkers, and something forced them to abandon safety in sub-zero conditions. When the search party finally located the campsite on February 26th, the scene was strange, but not chaotic. The tent was partially collapsed. Snow had covered portions of it, but the fabric had been sliced open from within. That detail matters, because it means the danger, whatever it was, made them choose speed over order. They didn't use the entrance, they cut through the side. Inside the tent, boots were left behind, warm clothing was left behind, supplies were untouched. If this had been a planned evacuation, they would have dressed properly. If this had been an attack, there would have been signs of struggle. Instead, investigators saw something different, a rapid but controlled departure. footprints led downhill toward the forest. Importantly, they were not erratic, not scattered. They moved in a line. That suggests awareness, not blind panic. Nearly a kilometer away, beneath a large cedar tree, the first two bodies were discovered. They were wearing minimal clothing. There were signs of a small fire. Branches high in the tree were broken. One of them had climbed, likely to gain visibility or to locate the tent in the dark. Between the tree and the campsite, 3 more bodies were later found. These individuals appeared to be moving uphill, back towards shelter. They didn't make it. The remaining 4 hikers weren't discovered until months later, buried under snow in a ravine, and their injuries would become the most controversial part of this entire case. Before assuming anything extraordinary, we need to understand something simple. Extreme cold changes human behavior. It changes perception. It changes decision-making. And once exposure begins, survival becomes a race against minutes, not hours. The scene at Dyatlov Pass wasn't random. It tells a sequence, a trigger, a retreat, an attempt to regroup, and then collapse. The real question isn't whether something happened. It's what kind of force would make 9 trained hikers abandon their only shelter in the middle of the night. Now we address the part that made this case explode globally, the injuries, because this is where speculation took over. The first 5 bodies, the ones found earlier, largely showed signs consistent with hypothermia. No major external trauma, some minor abrasions, nothing that screamed homicide. But the final 4, found in the ravine, were different. 1 had a fractured skull, 2 had severe chest trauma, the kind often compared to injuries from a car crash. 1 was missing her tongue. On paper, that sounds violent. But here's what the forensic reports actually said. There were no significant external wounds corresponding to the internal damage. No knife marks, no blunt force bruising consistent with an assault. The pathologist at the time stated the force was comparable to a powerful compression, something immense, not a fist, not a weapon, something environmental. Let's break this down logically. First, the skull fracture. It was serious, but not necessarily caused by an attack. A fall in icy terrain, especially downhill in darkness, can generate enough force. Second, the chest trauma. Snow behaves differently under pressure. Compacted snow, especially in a ravine, can become extremely dense, almost like concrete. If several meters of snow collapsed or shifted onto them, the compression could explain the internal fractures without leaving sharp external wounds. In fact, modern investigations decades later supported this possibility. Now, the most sensational detail, the missing tongue. This became fuel for conspiracy theories, but the body was found months later, submerged in running meltwater. Soft tissue decomposes first. Scavengers target exposed areas. The tongue and eyes are among the most vulnerable. There was no evidence of surgical removal, no precise cutting, just natural post-mortem degradation. It sounds disturbing, but biologically it's explainable. Then there's the radiation found on some clothing. This is often exaggerated. The levels detected were low, not lethal. One member of the group had previously worked in a facility involving radioactive materials. Contamination was possible before the expedition even began. It was not evidence of a secret weapon test. So when you strip it down, no confirmed external attacker, no ballistic evidence, no military debris, no signs of a fight. What we see instead is sudden evacuation, exposure, attempts to regroup, fatal environmental trauma. Which brings us to the central theory that has gained the most scientific support, a slab avalanche. Not a massive Hollywood avalanche, but a localized snow slab breaking loose under tension. The hikers had pitched their tent on a slope. They cut into the snow to level it. That weakens structural stability. Hours later, wind loading could have added pressure. If a slab shifted onto the tent, even partially, it would feel catastrophic. They would cut their way out immediately, move downhill to avoid further collapse, wait for stability, and then attempt to return. In darkness, in extreme cold, without proper clothing. From there, survival time drops fast. Hypothermia clouds judgment, energy fades, coordination disappears. What begins as a tactical retreat becomes a fatal spiral. Is this theory perfect? No, but it requires fewer assumptions than aliens, secret weapons, or supernatural forces. And the simplest explanation, in extreme environments, is often the right one. So what really happened at Dyatlov Pass? After decades of speculation, reopened investigations, and modern terrain modeling, the most grounded explanation remains environmental. Not paranormal, not military, not something hidden from the public. Just a chain reaction of small, compounding mistakes in one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. A tent placed on a vulnerable slope, snow weakened by human modification, wind loading through the night, a sudden shift, a partial collapse. 9 experienced hikers forced into a decision under pressure: leave immediately, regroup below, return once it's safe. That plan might have worked in different conditions, but the temperature that night likely dropped below -25 degrees Celsius. Wind chill made it worse. In those conditions, exposed skin begins to fail in minutes. Fine motor control disappears. Thinking slows. The body prioritizes survival over logic. Hypothermia doesn't kill dramatically, it kills quietly, gradually. And by the time the brain understands the danger, it's often too late. What makes this tragedy powerful isn't mystery, it's humanity. These weren't reckless thrill seekers. They were disciplined, organized, trained, and even they were overwhelmed by nature. The Dyatlov Pass incident endures not because it's supernatural, but because it reminds us how thin the margin of control really is. In extreme environments, confidence doesn't guarantee safety. Experience doesn't guarantee survival. Sometimes nature simply has the final word. And maybe that explanation is less dramatic, but it's far more real. If you found this breakdown useful, if you prefer evidence over exaggeration, then you're in the right place. This is NOXORA. We explore real cases, real history, real analysis. No noise, no theatrics, just clarity. If there's another historical mystery or unresolved case you want covered next, drop it in the comments. And if you made it this far, you already care about depth, so consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one.